can. We are active. Go ahead.
Thank you for joining us for the Presidential State of the Institute address as part of our inaugural virtual reunion and homecoming. Please make sure your volume is turned up. You will be muted throughout the presentation out of respect to our presenters. We received some questions during the registration process, and we will get to them as time allows during the Q&A portion of the program. I am now pleased to introduce Dr. Prabhat Hajela, Provost at Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute.
Thank you, Deirdre, and good morning. We hope everyone is staying safe and healthy and enjoying the inaugural virtual reunion and homecoming. As alumni, parents, students, faculty, and staff, and valued members of the Rensselaer community, we appreciate you joining us for a Presidential State of the Institute address. Today, President Jackson will share how we as an institute have navigated during the unprecedented times of the pandemic and what the future holds as we approach the celebration of 200 years of research, innovation, and excellence. It is now my pleasure to introduce the Honorable Dr. Shirley Ann Jackson, who has led our institute through transformative and strategic change as the 18th President of Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. As a result of President Jackson's strategic leadership since her arrival in 1999, there have been numerous accomplishments that have changed the Institute. These include, among many, transforming the student experience through the development of CLASS, clustered learning, advocacy, and support for students, a critical part of the Rensselaer education that you'll be hearing more about in a later session today, directly from our students. She has been an ardent supporter and visionary leader supporting the development of unique collaborations across the Institute to address grand global challenges. One example of such a collaboration is the establishment of the Center for Biotechnology and Interdisciplinary Studies. It has become the hub of biotechnology-based research at Rensselaer, recognized for its basic and applied research, world-class infrastructure and support staff, and growing funding base. She has championed the Jefferson Project at Lake George, a collaboration between Rensselaer, IBM Research, and the Fund for Lake George that has positioned Rensselaer as a leader in using technology to provide stewardship for our natural environment. You can learn more about these important initiatives in the Research Showcase and Center Highlights section of your passport. Under President Jackson's leadership, we have hired over 400 new faculty members who have brought new intellectual vigor to the campus and have contributed to a growth in Institute research expenditures to a level of $104 million this past year. The Institute has also invested more than $800 million in facilities for research, teaching, and student life over this period. President Jackson is focused on elevating brand awareness and the value of a Rensselaer degree, creating more demand than ever before for a Rensselaer education. This is evidenced by an increasing number of freshman class applications. And most recently, she has led the Institute through unprecedented times brought about by this global pandemic, with the safety of our students, faculty, and staff on campus as the absolute priority. So welcome, President Jackson.
Thank you, Provost Hajela, and welcome everyone to our first virtual State of the Institute event in Rensselaer history. We very much look forward to our next in-person reunion and homecoming, which is scheduled for October 8th through 10th, public health permitting, when we will celebrate all of our 2020 graduates who missed the pomp of an in-person commencement ceremony. However, we are taking full advantage of the opportunities of this moment. Thanks to the expansive capacity of online events, we have been able to invite the entire Rensselaer community to reunion and homecoming for the very first time, and not just the alumni and alumnae in particular class years, but all of our alumni and alumnae around the world. We're very proud of all of you, and we're so happy to be able to include you. We also have been able to invite our wonderful and resilient faculty, staff, and students, as well as family members and friends everywhere. Welcome, welcome to each and every one of you. Without question, this has been a very difficult year for everyone, but our community has met the considerable challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic with energy, with creativity, and with kindness, and in that way helped Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute over every obstacle. Let me share with you a few of the many ways that our faculty, staff, and students have contributed to our ongoing missions in research, in education, and in student life while working vigorously to combat COVID-19. I am so proud of the way that the entire Rensselaer community leapt into action last spring. As you know, in the United States, our early efforts to contain the virus were hampered by a severe shortage of personal protective equipment, or PPE, for healthcare workers. Now, more than 200 Chinese families of Rensselaer students generously arranged a shipment of surgical masks to Rensselaer, allowing us to donate 10,000 masks to New York State hospitals. The members of our student maker club, The Forge, also immediately began recruiting volunteer students and alumni and alumnae with 3D printers at home to produce face shields and ear guards for hospitals along the East Coast. After a request for help from our partner in education, Albany Medical Center, a collaboration among our manufacturing staff on campus, led by Director of Manufacturing Innovation, Sam Chapone, also began making face shields. Beginning first with 3D printing and then employing plastic injection molding and laser cutting machines, they reduced the time required to make a single face shield from 1.5 hours to around 2 minutes, while developing a new design that offers more protection. They have supplied thousands of these shields to hospitals to protect healthcare workers, including to Albany Medical Center, to St. Peter's Health Partners, and to Elmhurst Hospital in Queens, New York, a public hospital that was overwhelmed by COVID patients early in the crisis. Thousands more Rensselaer designed shields are being used on campus, in our research labs, in our undergraduate labs, and by our faculty in the classroom. Another request for help came from our affiliate, the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai, whose medical center also was at the epicenter of the outbreak in New York City and desperate for alternatives if supplies of disposable face masks could not be increased. A multidisciplinary group here led by Professor Robert Karlachek, director of our Center for Light-Enabled Systems and Applications, rapidly invented a machine that uses ultraviolet light to sterilize thousands of protective masks each day. They did that in a matter of weeks. In the spring of 2020, we also joined forces with our partner IBM and with MIT, the US Department of Energy National Laboratories, NASA, the National Science Foundation, and others to create a COVID-19 high-performance computing consortium, which volunteers free compute time on world-class machines to researchers around the world addressing the pandemic. AMOS, our magnificent artificial intelligence multi-processing optimized system, is the most powerful supercomputer at an American private university. Through the consortium, AMOS and Rensselaer experts in high-performance computing have supported computing-intensive investigations into COVID-19 that include molecular simulations of the SARS-CoV-2 virus and a new drug repurposing methodology. Now, many members of the COVID-19 consortium are proposing making it a permanent feature of our national response to crises, with the creation of a national strategic computing reserve, of which we will be a part. The wisdom of our vision for Rensselaer as the new Polytechnic, a great crossroads where the perspectives of multiple disciplines are united to address complex and interrelated challenges, was confirmed by much of the research that has taken place here since the pandemic began. For example, Professor Yunfei Shi of our Department of Materials Science and Engineering was inspired by gas phase chemistry in leading the creation of a model to predict disease spread based on how much a population is moving within its community. The team also has been able to demonstrate that these forecasts change as communities lock down or masks are mandated. They have shared their approach with the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, which includes their model among its forecasting resources. Rensselaer also has been the locus of important work in the realm of therapeutics. A team of Rensselaer researchers led by Dr. John Dordick, the Howard P. Eiserman Professor of Chemical and Biological Engineering and Special Advisor to the President for Strategic Initiatives, and Dr. Robert Linhart, the Broadbent Senior Constellation Professor of Biocatalysis and Metabolic Engineering, Chemistry and Chemical Biology, built on the antiviral work they had done on the dengue and Zika viruses to apply a similar decoy strategy to SARS-CoV-2. They discovered that both the blood thinner heparin and an extract from edible seaweeds can bind to the spike proteins of SARS-CoV-2 before the virus can bind to mammalian cells. Other research was designed to help strained physicians on the front lines better manage their COVID-19 cases. For example, Professor Ping-Kun Yan of our Department of Biomedical Engineering and a team of faculty and students that includes Dr. Ji Wang, the Clark and Crossan Endowed Chair Professor and Director of our Biomedical Imaging Center, developed an algorithm that uses artificial intelligence to predict successfully whether a COVID patient will require ICU intervention by combining computed tomography, CT images, that assess the severity of a patient's lung infection with non-imaging data, including demographic information, vital signs, and laboratory blood tests. The team is collaborating with physicians at Massachusetts General Hospital on this project and hope it will soon help clinicians there. And they are working to expand the concept to other health conditions. All of this magnificent interdisciplinary research confirms the value of the investment Rensselaer made in the life sciences and biotechnology at the beginning of my tenure here. Over 2 decades ago, we saw that the life sciences, not a traditional area of focus for Rensselaer, increasingly drew on computation, on engineering, and on design-driven research, and that Rensselaer would have much to contribute, therefore, in biotechnology. Those investments include, of course, our magnificent Center for Biotechnology and Interdisciplinary Studies, or CBIS, the first major new research building to be constructed on our Troy campus since the 1980s. Rensselaer people are not merely working to illuminate and to control the course of COVID-19 in both individual patients and communities. They are using their expertise very generously to help all of us adjust to the disruptions the pandemic has imposed, and to consider what changes are likely to outlast the pandemic. In the Lally School of Management, Professor Timothy Golden, who has studied telecommuting for more than 20 years, is working to help employers to understand the lessons of the past year as they weigh establishing remote work or a hybrid form as the norm for their companies. Now, in terms of our educational mission, our faculty have helped us to accommodate all of our students, undergraduate and graduate, those on our thinned out campus, and those learning at a distance, often by teaching the same course in multiple modes, in person, remotely, or in a hybrid of the other two. And so I thank our faculty for their extraordinary efforts and for their ingenuity in maintaining the active style of learning that characterizes Rensselaer in a virtual environment, no less. For example, Professor Rhett Russo of our School of Architecture has used a whiteboard application to duplicate the studio experience Rensselaer offers, where architecture students post their drawings so that their fellow students and teachers can offer feedback or take inspiration from them. The digital whiteboard even has enhanced the studio experience in some ways, allowing comments to be preserved and allowing prominent architects from around the world to participate in reviews of student work. Here is one among many such examples of pedagogical creativity. Downloadable software designed by Professor of Practice Ronald Hedden of our Department of Chemical and Biological Engineering immerses students inside a virtual chemical plant, allowing them to develop and tune a control system for the plant and to gain experience with chemical process equipment that is too large, too costly, or too dangerous to bring into a classroom. Clearly, some of the pandemic-born teaching tools our faculty have piloted this year are going to inspire us to new ways of thinking about teaching and learning in the future. Now, please allow me to give you an update on our own management of COVID-19 on the Troy campus. In planning for our reopening this past fall, we benefited from a number of characteristic Rensselaer strengths, including an outpouring of support from our donors that allowed us to include rigorous COVID-19 testing for our campus community as part of our testing, tracing, tracking, surveillance, quarantine, and isolation, or T-SQI, comprehensive health and safety protocols. I thank all of you, all of our donors, for your generosity during this challenging time, which included support for research to combat the virus and, importantly, emergency student relief, financial relief. Together, you truly have made a difference here. We are so fortunate as well to have a laboratory capable of performing extremely sensitive reverse transcription polymerase chain reaction, or RT-PCR tests, at the rate of thousands of samples a day at our Heparin Applied Research Center in the Rensselaer Technology Park. Now, it is unusual for a university without a medical school to have such a capability. And this again reflects our investments over the past 2 decades in the life sciences and biotechnology. Those investments were essential in allowing us to reopen safely last fall and to keep students learning here, even during the worst phases of the pandemic. With the leadership of Dr. John Dordick, Dr. Leslie Lawrence, our Executive Director for Health and Wellness, and Mr. Curtis Powell, our Vice President for Human Resources, our testing lab now has become a new CLIA-approved laboratory for COVID-19 testing, designated as an overflow lab for St. Peter's Health Partners. For those who don't know, CLIA stands for Clinical Laboratory Improvements Amendments of 1988. Now, the laboratory's current testing capacity is 3,200 samples per day, with a 24-hour turnaround for results. In addition to processing tests for our own students who are tested twice per week, but also for our faculty and staff, we currently have client contracts for testing with CDPHP and with the Emma Willard School, and pending contracts with the University at Albany and General Electric. The lab also has the capacity to conduct genomic sequencing to identify variants of the virus, and we have begun to do that. During our fall semester, Rensselaer had a remarkably low incidence of infection, just 22 positive results out of over 86,000 tests conducted. The spring semester, unfortunately, we reached our trigger level 1 status on March 2nd, with more than 30 confirmed COVID-19 cases among our students, faculty, and staff with campus access within a rolling 2-week period. Now, reaching the trigger 1 level meant suspending all in-person instruction, pivoting to online instruction, and suspending access to campus facilities, except for student housing, and the Alumni Sports and Recreation Center for COVID-19 testing. All undergraduate students residing on the campus were required to quarantine in place, and those residing off campus were expected to do so as well. And I'm happy to say that as a result of our collective diligence, testing results improved, and all conditions were met for a return to in-person instruction on Monday, May 22nd. To immediately identify and limit any future cases, we now are requiring all registered students who live within a 25-mile radius of the Troy campus to be tested for COVID-19 on a twice-a-week basis until the end of the semester, even if they are online learners and do not have campus access. Now, it long has been my goal to bring COVID-19 vaccines directly to our students. On Tuesday, April the 6th, New Yorkers 16 years of age and older became eligible to receive COVID-19 vaccines. And I'm pleased to announce that we have been authorized by the state of New York as a vaccine point of distribution center. This week, we began offering students our first doses of vaccines. You know, as highly effective vaccines allow us to see the light at the end of the tunnel, I must take a moment here to commend our students and their parents for their patience over the past year. My first obligation as president of Rensselaer is to keep our students, faculty, and staff safe. And we have managed to balance safety with our educational mission. But I'm keenly aware that it has required sacrifices on the part of our students and, by extension, their families. I thank you for that. In a year full of grief for many of us personally and for humanity as a whole, without question, that grief has been worsened by recent senseless acts of violence, as recently as overnight at a FedEx facility in Indianapolis. A number of these incidents remind us of the particular pain and fear experienced by any group that has been targeted. You know, we have a broad-based, multicultural and global community here at Rensselaer, and we care about everyone here. And here at Rensselaer, we stand with anyone who has been the subject of unwarranted attacks. We are a community of scientists, engineers, scholars, students, and those who support them. Collaboration and cooperation are at the heart of our work here. It is something we cannot do without tolerance, and respect for each other. And we certainly cannot collaborate well without caring for each other deeply. That means that we pull together in times of peril. We do our best to keep everyone safe, and we do not tolerate any form of threatening or harassing behavior. Empathy and respect are foundational to all that we do. Now, among the many other challenges of the past year, there have been financial disruptions as well. We estimate that in terms of lost revenue and unplanned expenses, COVID-19 will have cost Rensselaer $74 million by the end of fiscal year 2021. However, with very careful management, we have managed to implement projected cost savings of over $72 million. In fiscal year 2020, we had strong cash flow from operations of $35.4 million and $32.2 million. Our external operating result was among the strongest that we've had in the past 20 years. And I'm also pleased, very pleased to tell you that based on our preliminary investment results, the Rensselaer Endowment now has reached $1 billion. So we are on a very sound footing as we anticipate the end of the pandemic and look to the future. In addition, our $1 billion capital campaign, Transformative Campaign for Global Change, is helping us to realize three important ambitions. The first is increasing student financial aid and enhancing the student experience through what we refer to as bridging the gap. Many families are experiencing economic hardship because of COVID-19, which makes our efforts to close the distance between the financial aid we can offer and student need so very important. And as we look further down the road, changing demographics mean that colleges nationwide will be serving more young people from underrepresented groups who may have less family wealth to pay for higher education. Because we have always understood that brilliance does not exclusively come in wealthy packages, and because we intend to accept the very best students regardless of their socioeconomic backgrounds, we are working very hard to add even more to our endowment to meet student financial need. Our second pillar focuses on our faculty. The resources unleashed by the campaign will allow us to create endowed professorships that will attract and retain the very best academic talent from around the world. With campaign success, we also will expand our tenured and tenure-track faculty to 500 so that Rensselaer can achieve intellectual critical mass and lead in crucial areas of research and education that address humanity's greatest challenges, including future pandemics and the increasing volatility brought on by a changing climate. Our third pillar focuses on our Troy campus, which we will continue to modernize and equip for growth and continued leadership in research, pedagogy, and student life. Since 2017, our capital campaign has drawn nearly 171,000 commitments from 34,000 unique donors, and we surpassed the halfway point to our goal last year. So we are well on our way to building an even stronger Rensselaer as we approach our third century. I encourage you to learn more about the campaign at our website, transformative.rpi.edu. As we anticipate a brighter future on the public health front, we are planning now for an in-person Arch summer semester. For our alumni and alumni who may not be familiar with the Arch, It is one of our great pedagogical innovations of recent years. All of our students now spend the summer before their traditional junior year on campus, taking junior level courses so that they can spend a semester or more of the traditional junior year off on an intellectual adventure or professional growth experience of their choosing, whether a co-op or internship experience, a research or independent learning experience, a volunteer experience, or even launching their own venture. Rensselaer graduates long have been in high demand with the best employers and graduate schools. The Arch Away experience distinguishes them further. We also look forward to being fully in person in the fall, this fall of 2021, assuming the public health situation allows it. In both instances, our fundamental health and safety protocols and testing will remain in place with vaccinations of our students required. I am also pleased to share that applications for our next freshman class are up 5% overall and 10% for domestic students. In all, applications number over 17,500 this year, which is quite a leap upward from the 5,200 and some that we received in 1999, a testament to the many ways our reputation has grown. We also had record numbers of applications this year from students in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Massachusetts. Again, we're drawing from our strongest regions, but it also suggests that our reputation is strong beyond the capital region and New York State. We continue to receive applications, of course, from across the country and around the world. Now, as we look to welcome the class of 2025, we also look to launch the remarkable class of 2021. After carefully considering how best to celebrate the class of 2021, while following New York State health guidelines and testing requirements, given the current state of the pandemic, we have decided that our 215th commencement ceremony this May will consist of both a streamlined in-person commencement ceremony as well as a live stream of that ceremony. We are very pleased that revised New York State guidelines will allow us to include in our in-person celebration all students eligible for May graduation, as well as August 2020 and December 2020 graduates. To comply with state guidelines, however, outside guests will not be permitted to attend the in-person ceremony. We invite and encourage families and friends to view the live stream of the commencement ceremony. We also will revive our grand tradition of the President's Commencement Colloquy this year, which is scheduled for Friday, May 21st, 2021, on the eve of commencement. Our colloquy theme this year is the grand challenges of humanity, opportunity in disruption. Now, details are still being finalized with our honorary degree recipients, but I am pleased to announce who they are. We are happy to honor and celebrate the Honorable Ashton Carter, Ph.D., former United States Secretary of Defense and current director of the Belfer School for Science and International Affairs at the Harvard Kennedy School. Dr. Anthony Fauci, director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases at the National Institutes of Health and chief medical advisor to the President of the United States. Sir Paul Nurse, who was awarded the 2001 Nobel Prize in Physiology and Medicine, alongside Dr. Tim Hunt and Dr. Leland Hartwell, for discovering the gene that regulates cell division. Sir Paul Nurse also is former president of Rockefeller University and former president of the Royal Society. And Dr. John Anderson, president of the National Academy of Engineering. I hope all of you will be able to join us, whether virtually or in person. And while we usually open the floor to questions at our State of the Institute events, today the audience is simply too large, so we will address as many questions as we can that came in during the registration process. But please allow me to introduce our portfolio experts and leaders who will help me to clarify the finer points of inquiry. And they are Dr. Prabhat Hajela, our provost, whom you met earlier. Mr. Craig Cook, Secretary of the Institute and General Counsel. Ms. Barbara Howe, Vice President for Finance and Chief Financial Officer. Dr. Robert Hull, Acting Vice President for Research. Ms. Richie Hunter, Vice President for Strategic Communications and External Relations. Mr. John Kolb, Vice President for Information Services and Technology and Chief Information Officer. Dr. Peter Konwersky, Vice President for Student Life, from whom you will be hearing shortly at our Class Alive panel. Dr. Lee McElroy, Associate Vice President and Director of Athletics. Mr. Curtis Powell, Vice President for Human Resources. Mr. Claude Rounds, Vice President for Administration. Mr. John Wexler, Vice President for Enrollment Management. Mr. Greg Easton, Vice President for Institute Advancement. Dr. John Dordick, the Howard P. Iserman Professor of Chemical and Biological Engineering and Special Advisor to the President for Strategic Initiatives. Dr. Leslie Lawrence, Executive Director for Health and Wellness. Dr. Kurt Brenneman, Dean of the School of Science. Dr. Chanaka Edarasinga, Acting Dean of the Lally School of Management. Dr. Shekhar Garde, Dean of the School of Engineering. Dr. Mary Simoni, Dean of the School of Humanities, Arts, and Social Sciences. And Dr. Eric Kraus, Dean of Academic and Administrative Affairs for the Rensselaer Hartford campus. Mr. Evan Douglas, Dean of the School of Architecture, is unable to join us today. And so now we will begin with the questions that came in.
Thank you, Dr. Jackson. We had a question come in about global warming and what Rensselaer is doing to address it.
Well, let me begin. As a world-class technological research university, we clearly have an important role to play in this important area in helping the world to replace aging carbon-emitting technologies with new technologies of all kinds that mitigate or eliminate carbon emissions in fields that range from transportation to our built environment to power generation. And indeed, one of two broad research umbrellas at Rensselaer is infrastructural resilience, sustainability, and stewardship, which focuses on advances in energy, materials, the built environment, and smart systems, and how they all come together to both mitigate climate change and to provide more resilience in our built and natural environment against the effects of climate change. The other we term digital meets reality, which is the application of high-performance computing, data analytics and artificial intelligence, sensor technology, data visualization, and immersive technologies of all kinds to help our understanding of the physical world around us. When one is dealing with a system of systems as complex as the Earth's climate or our freshwater resources, this second research umbrella also is key. Indeed, in 2019, the Nature Conservancy asked me to join its global board, in part so that I could contribute a technological perspective, some of which derives from our work here at Rensselaer, to issues such as climate change. But now let me ask Dr. Robert Hull, our Acting Vice President for Research, to summarize some of the work our faculty and students are doing here to lead us to a climate change mitigated world. Robert?
So thank you very much, Dr. Jackson, and just developing on Dr. Jackson's excellent summary. I'm going to characterize or group our work into three areas. The first is mitigation through development of renewable sources of energy. And we have faculty who are focusing on new energy storage systems, whether it be solar concentrators or whether it be advanced battery designs. We have faculty who are advancing the electrical grid to be able to develop with very fast changing energy demands. And we've seen how critical that is in the recent events in Texas. So the second of the three areas is adapting to the fact of changing climate. So there, for example, we have faculty who are working on the opportunities and challenges associated with access to the Arctic, whether it be developing microgrids in local communities, or whether it be developing new supply and emergency access routes to the Arctic. And the final area is an environmental response to global climate, to global warming. And there we have work on preserving freshwater resources, for example, with the Jefferson Project at Lake George, now extending to many other lakes across the state and eventually the country and the world. And also in understanding how lakes play into the global climate system, whether or not it's carbon capture or oxygenation. And finally, we're launching a big effort in the built environment to understand how to make the built environment both carbon and energy neutral and also climate change resistant to the extremes of climate change. So I'll stop there, Dr. Jackson, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
The next question, why has Rensselaer prohibited students who are members of a social fraternity or sorority from living at their respective houses?
Well, our whole focus this year, as I mentioned earlier, has been on the health and safety of our students. And therefore, a de-densification strategy has been paramount, and that's what we've employed, as well as our ability to monitor adherence to our health and safety protocols for those who have campus access. And those things have driven every decision about housing that we have made. But let Dr. Konworski, Peter, expound a bit on this. Peter?
Sure, Dr. Jackson, thank you for the opportunity to address this. I think, as you said, the health and safety has been the primary focus, and that decision was made based on the high density congregate housing challenge that we know that fraternities and sororities and other facilities close to campus would have. I will say we've continued to work closely with the alumni, both in the leadership of the Greek community and as well as the student leaders. And, we're continuing to meet. In fact, there was a meeting earlier today, and that, we'll continue to work through the challenges that they face around finances. In fact, we've been working on fundraising to support them, and that will continue through the spring. Because we've recognized that that was a challenge of losing revenue. And I know, Dr. Jackson, you mentioned the significant challenges that the Institute faces, and we know that others have faced. So we're working together as a collective commons, and I think we'll be in a much better place as we all go forward, and we'll do that as a community.
Next, what is the long-term goal for purchasing more land around the school to create more student housing options?
Over the years, we have actually continuously and opportunistically purchased land to expand our academic and research space and to purchase buildings or lease buildings for expanded student housing. In fact, when I arrived, Rensselaer did not have an integral core academic campus. The South Campus was bordered by old houses, some of them boarded up along College Avenue. We did not have an integral campus along 8th Street and so on. And now the area bordered by 8th Street to the east, by 15th Street to the east and 8th to the west, and Sage Avenue to the north and College Avenue to the south, all belongs to Rensselaer, and that creates an unbroken core campus. And that's important not just for the campus experience, but for safety. In addition, we have leased and renovated space outside of our original footprint to create more student housing, both owned by us in certain cases and through privatized developments. And so as we focus this year on what our campus master plan needs to be, student housing is a core part of our considerations. But let me turn to Claude Rounds, our Vice President for Administration, to add to this.
Thank you, Dr. Jackson. And as Dr. Jackson indicated, our focus is on looking at our current housing assets and identifying what we can best do to maintain the quality and improve the quality of assets. Our primary needs right now are not necessarily going out and building more student housing. We need to focus on the student housing we have and provide a student housing plan that's consistent with the demand and consistent with the quality that our students look for. So I would not say that we are exclusively going out looking to buy more property and to build more off-campus housing. We're really focused. We have adequate housing right now. And one of the important things right now is understand how in a post-pandemic environment, what are the housing demands based on the student enrollment?
We had another question about game scores not appearing in newspapers and whether Rensselaer is still playing sports.
As you might expect, in the interests of health and safety during the COVID-19 pandemic, out of necessity, we have curtailed our athletic activities. Although we recently have allowed some practice and potential competition for our intercollegiate athletes. Now, we recently had to call a bit of a pause because of COVID cases showing up among a number of our teams. But I think Lee McElroy, our Director of Athletics, can speak more fulsomely to that.
Thank you, Dr. Jackson. Yes, we, as Dr. Jackson indicated, we did not compete in the fall or the winter, along with our conference colleagues in the Liberty League and also the ECAC. So we're looking forward to competing in the future and in the fall. And as Dr. Jackson indicated, we've begun spring athletic activities as of the beginning of March. Let me just add one other thing that I think is really important. Although scores weren't mentioned because we didn't compete, we were covered in the media on several stories, one most recently by Hannah Price from women's ice hockey for her contribution to the community at Rensselaer and Troy community in volunteer service and also in making sure that our students were involved with leadership. So we're covered in a number of ways, and we continue to do well in the community with service and leadership, as well as academics, and we have a very bright and robust future. So thank you for the question.
Second that. Thank you, Lee.
Next, we had questions about how Rensselaer is managing the financial and academic impacts of the Arch.
Well, each Arch semester, including the summer semester, is structured as a regular semester. And as such, a student's financial aid continues through these semesters in the usual way. Now, as for the away experience, we have very rigorously ramped up the work of the CCPD, that's the Center for Career and Professional Development, and its staffing to help generate more paid positions for students during their away semester. In fact, the employers with whom we have been working have indicated their pleasure at having the opportunity of the students spending a more extended work time for them. And as we've gone along, we have continuously built up the number of potential positions for which students can apply. Peter, do you want to add to this?
Yeah, Excuse me, Dr. Jackson. I think I can amplify it by saying, some of the greatest opportunities we have are coming directly from our alumni and faculty. And if you're interested in either hosting an intern or, hiring a student, whether it's during the Arch or as a postgraduate opportunity, we have really, as Dr. Jackson said, built a robust team, an employer relations team who are eager to connect with you. So you can certainly reach them through me or through our director of the CCPD. But as Dr. Jackson said, we've now had this will be the third full summer of implementation where students are completing the Arch and then going off for an away semester. We have roughly over 900 students who are away semester this spring. Obviously, that was because of the pivot to as a result of the pandemic. But the approximate breakdown is, about 500 each semester will be off either fall or spring, doing something experiential that's tied to their curriculum. So as Dr. Jackson said, it could be service, could be academic experience, but many of them are in internships, co-ops, or self-designed initiatives where they're building their own plan that pertains to their academic goals and aspirations.
Even Prabhat, you can correct me on this, that actually our students have had and are having more internships and the like than before we implemented the Arch. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct, Dr. Jackson. I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. Prior to the Arch being introduced, we would have of the order of about 250 students throughout the institute, that is across all 4 years, going out on internships or co-ops. Just the junior class is participating in 400 plus such opportunities this year. So you see a significant increase in the number of people getting this professional, pre-professional experience as a result of the Arch.
And as I said, we look carefully at the financial aid needs. And in addition, not all students want a traditional co-op or internship. And so we work to make sure they have a breadth of opportunities. But in addition, students can self-design an individual learning experience and have it approved by our Vice Provost and Dean of Undergraduate Education.
Next, please tell us about what you are doing to engage our alumni and alumnae.
Well, I'm really pleased to say that Alumni Engagement and Giving has picked up in recent months as we have reached and passed the halfway mark in our campaign. And we've been able to book a number of significant gifts and pledges. Moreover, Institute Advancement has innovated and created executive councils of dedicated, philanthropic, and high-achieving alumni and alumnae. And these include the Silicon Valley Executive Council, the Greater New York Executive Council, the New England Executive Council, the Capital Region Executive Council, and the Texas Triangle Executive Council. And this has led to much greater alumni engagement and support for the Capital campaign. Our presidential Global Game Changer session yesterday, in fact, was hosted by the Capital Region Executive Council. But let me turn to Greg Easton to talk more expansively about alumni engagement and our fundraising. Greg?
Thank you so much, Dr. Jackson. It's a great question. And we have really, particularly the last 3 years, have really been increasing how we partner and collaborate with members of our community and really looking at how we can increase the philanthropic opportunities in front of us, and particularly really the strong support with our Board of Trustees and, as Dr. Jackson mentioned, our regional executive councils. And we've also been working with the RA board, and we've been working with overall chapter leadership to really engage the chapters all the way down the line. We also have been expanding our partnership with our annual Giving Leadership Council and really growing that area. And particularly one interesting area is our corporate ambassador program. We're working with 12 companies right now where we have ambassadors embedded in these companies, which have hired a significant number of our alumni and alumnae to really carry the message forward and to really engage them in their participation. And it's really looking beyond the administration to the peer-to-peer partnership, which has really helped grow this participation. And in this past year, we launched a specific initiative relating to, because of the pandemic, we had to pivot away from our traditional events that were on insight, and including the global game changer panels and our red talks and our class alive activities. And as you see, our state of the Institute today, and we have pivoted to a virtual world, and that actually has really come out well for us. Our audiences have greatly increased, and it's given us a chance to talk about the strengths of this university and the wonderful students that we have. And you know, one really example you should think about, those of you that are in reunion and homecoming with us here today, is take a look at our passport to Rensselaer. We've captured over 120 videos of what's taking place on this campus through the eyes of our faculties and our students, and really help provide a vehicle for you to showcase this campus to your peers. And we really feel that this is a wonderful vehicle for you to use and showcase. But really, in the end, it's really engaging you in the process of reaching out to your peer and your fellow graduates. You can help us make a difference and partner with us. And we want to thank all of you who are working with us as ambassadors, and we want to encourage others to really become ambassadors in your workplaces and in your community. And really together we can make a difference. Thank you, Dr. Jackson.
I would also point out that you know, we have a number of families who are quite engaged and who really support us philanthropically. Engagement through the Parents Council, and a number of them are philanthropic, as well as the Society of Families, folks who are really helping us with their very generous philanthropy. And so it's an all-in among all of our community members and our Rensselaer family, and we're deeply appreciative.
Next question. We had a question about why Rensselaer offers a music degree.
Thank you for that question. Well, let me remind you that Rensselaer long has offered an excellent education in the arts. In fact, we helped to pioneer the integrated electronic arts as an academic discipline. And today, our programs in the electronic arts and in the arts and in the games and simulation arts and sciences are ranked very high nationwide. And we are a designated New York State Center of Excellence in digital game development, which works to support and expand New York's digital game sector. Now, one of the great impetuses that we had in launching a technology-inflected degree in music was the fact that we have so many highly accomplished musicians among our students. And with our music program, we are educating students for emerging careers in music production, composition, and performance that may combine music with the sciences, media, and engineering. And at Rensselaer, we have a lot to contribute to the arts as they become increasingly digital, and much to learn from them as well. And that is why through our ArtX initiative, we help our students in all disciplines to see the science and engineering in and of art, and the art in and of science and engineering. We want all of them to understand common concepts, common to the arts, to architecture, to mathematics and engineering, such as the Fibonacci sequence or the aperiodic patterns found in medieval Islamic mosaics, in Penrose tiles, and in quasi-crystals. And so there's a lot going on there. And so let me turn to Dean Mary Simone and to our provost to elaborate a bit.
Okay, I thank you for that question. It is an area that is very near and dear to my heart, and have had recent experiences, well as last night where I was rehearsing with one of our biomedical engineering majors who's an accomplished cellist. But because the Rensselaer core curriculum offers our undergraduate students rigorous training in mathematics and physics, as well as the liberal arts, we have a distinct advantage over other institutions to prepare this next generation of leaders in the burgeoning field of music technology, media production, and content creation, as Dr. Jackson mentioned. The knowledge and practice that our faculty impart to the music students are in very high demand in the music industry. And we know that because we surveyed a number of corporations through the music and entertainment industry prior to deciding to launch the program. I'm happy to say that we have developed strong relationships with the Bose Corporation, Steinway & Sons, Cirque du Soleil, Analog Systems, music streaming services such as Spotify, so that our students are really well placed, particularly through the Arch Away semester, so that they can practice their music creation and production skills in service of primarily the entertainment and gaming industry. These are really important skills that corporations covet, particularly in their R&D departments.
Bob, do you have anything you want
Well,
to
I
add?
think the topic has been covered quite exhaustively. I'll just add that over the past several years, Rensselaer curriculum has evolved to expand the aperture for intellectual growth for our students. And as we deploy new academic programs, we always seek to embed a very distinct Rensselaer element to what and how we teach our students. As you spoke of, Dr. Jackson, our games program is unique in its multidisciplinary emphasis. It's an approach that cuts across multiple departments and schools. That same idea was in play when we designed the formal study of music. Many students come to Rensselaer having studied and played music all their lives. While they may want to study science or engineering at Rensselaer, they retain a passion and desire to further their learning in music. Some may seek a minor in music. Others seek deeper involvement and pursue flexible dual major opportunities offered in the program that Mary has successfully built. As a music program that is based in a technological research university, we had that natural ability to focus on both music performance and on technical elements of music production, including the development of instrumentation. So I think those are a few other things that I could add to what you and Dean Simone have already posited on the subject.
Thanks, Bob.
And finally, what is the long-term goal for getting the students to recycle more within their residence halls?
It's an interesting question, and interestingly enough, Claude Rounds, our Vice President for Administration, thinks a lot about this because he actually is the one who makes sure the dorms, what we call them res halls these days, really work and it works for the students. And we think about these things a lot. So Claude, you want to say a few words?
Thank you, Dr. Jackson. Campus sustainability is a short-term goal, not a long-term goal. And we have a number of student organizations and clubs who, as part of their mission, have sustainability elements ingrained in that. And we also have a student sustainability task force. So the Rensselaer student is heavily engaged in sustainability, and what we do is to provide every opportunity to empower and support them. We bring them together. We have meetings and planning sessions, and we provide them with systems, processes, and tools to help them facilitate campus sustainability. Recycle and waste reduction is a centerpiece of that. Unfortunately, when we had to leave the campus last spring for the pandemic, that group was really starting to gain some headway. So we position them when they come back to campus in the fall to really step right into where we were and move forward with some very aggressive student-driven sustainability efforts.
Thanks, Claude. So Deirdre, I think, is that it? I think
that was the last one.
Okay. Well, let me thank everyone who joined us today, and I thank everyone who submitted questions. That helps to kind of flesh out things that are on people's minds. And now we will take a brief 10-minute intermission. And then I urge you to follow the link to our Class Alive event, because then you get the great chance to hear from some of our remarkable students. I look to see you in about 10 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you to Dr. Jackson and her leadership team and for everyone who joined us for the Presidential State of the Institute address. If you plan to attend class alive to hear from 3 of our esteemed students, you can find the link to join in the email you received this morning or on reunion.rpi.edu under Class Alive. The link is also available in the description of this YouTube live stream. Thank you.
John, you're clear to stop the live stream. I will be moving most of you down to attendee status, and I'm going to be promoting a couple of the students